Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Summer Creative Retreat 2024. I am so excited to continue the day. I know that you guys were just as excited as I was, so I will echo that there are 82 countries tuning in, 82 countries of people who are creative all coming together in one spot during this very time of year in this space together. This is all of us. This is cool, right? We're going to continue our theme that we have pivoted into in the most beautiful way in mindfulness with our next instructor. And I'll tell you no more. I was just talking backstage with her about how I could talk about color all day. And I could. So I'm going to not do that. Okay. Let her take over. So firstly, though, I will say that Mel Rye is fantastic and also is a really creative. Let's do that. The best way that I can say. It's wonderful when we can expand these tools that we learn, especially with 2D, and make them 3D. Or I will say less. You know what our topic is. I'm like, I don't want to spoil anything, but Mel is an excellent instructor. You probably know of her. If you don't already, I will bring her in. I can't wait for everything that she is going to present to you all today. I really encourage working along with this one. Hi, Mel.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. How is everybody today?
Yay. I was telling her too, doesn't her aesthetic right now just like this is why I started the color thing. I was just like, you're black and white with that beautiful ochre yellow with your mobile and then your earrings, and it's all so good. I'm so happy. Oh, okay, Mel, I'm going to be over here in the background if you need anything at all. Everybody, we're going to have some fun.
Thank you, Peggy. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to be here. I loved coming along last year. I actually did a pre-recorded one last year, so I'm super excited to be live this year. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be continuing the theme of mindfulness. The last couple of classes you've had have been all about that. And we are going to do some kind of pattern drawings, which if you were there the other day for the Zentangle session, you can definitely use the same kind of skills that you kind of picked up in that session. But I've got a few little tips that I can give you along the way to help you kind of tune into the mindfulness aspect. So if you're anything like me, I love the idea of mindfulness, but I find it kind of really difficult to just not do anything and tune in and just kind of be mindfully aware without my mind just going off somewhere else. So I've got a few tips for you today. So I hope you're ready. I'm just going to change my camera over so you can see what we are doing. Okie dokie. So I saw a couple of you saying in the chat that there is a workbook. So if you don't already have that, you can hop on over to my website, and there is a workbook which walks you through the whole process. So make sure that you grab that. So I am going to work today with color. So like Peggy was saying, I love both monochrome, but I also love black and white. And I was a bit like, which am I going to do? So you can use whatever you prefer. So if you're someone who really loves monochrome, then just using some black materials with some white paper will be awesome. So here's an example of one that I've created that's just monochrome. But equally, if you love color, then feel free to follow along in color. So I've just grabbed some scraps of card that I'm going to use, and that you don't need that much. If you're going to do this in black and white, just one sheet of like A4 or letter size paper will be like enough. And I've decided that I wanted to use like 3 different colors of paper. So I've just picked out some colors. Now, in terms of supplies, you can really use anything that you're comfy with. So, you know, if you've got crayons out, maybe you still have some watercolors out from the session that you just had with Shelley, or markers or Posca pens or fine liners, really anything that you have. The kind of techniques and processes, you can kind of apply them to any material. So don't feel that you need to use the same materials as me, because you really don't. So I'm going to use Posca pens today because I am currently just a little bit obsessed with the colors, and I love the kind of vibrancy and the how opaque they can become. So I'm going to start just by drawing some circles, which are going to be kind of the basis of my shapes. So I'm just using, to draw my circles, if you have a compass, you can totally use that, but I'm just going to draw around like some sellotapes and masking tapes for my circles. So that will be my large one. So we're going to aim, hopefully, all being well time-wise, we're going to aim to do 3 circles in our session today. So it will be a large, medium, and a small circle. You can totally do this process with way more, though. Like if you have the workbook, I've given you some examples of like 4 circle compositions in there as well. So, and also you can do it at any size. So I'm keeping them relatively small and manageable because we only have 45 minutes, but you know, you could do some huge ones. I mean, wouldn't it be awesome to like draw around some dinner plates or something huge to make some massive ones? That would be so cool. So I've got my circles then prepared. So 1 large, 1 medium, and 1 small. So what we're going to start with is I'm going to walk you through some of my kind of favorite go-to patterns that I love to draw. So I thought I'd just show you my little sketchbook that I have. So I do a lot of this kind of drawing. If you've kind of seen any of my online courses, or maybe you came to last year's workshop session, you know that I just love pattern. So I'm kind of always doodling. I find it really helps my kind of sanity. I kind of also find that it really helps me come up with kind of ideas for things when I'm doodling and kind of drawing something. And it's just really nice because it doesn't have to look a certain way. When you're drawing a pattern, there's kind of less of that frustration about, oh, I wish it looked a bit more like this, or it doesn't kind of look exactly like the thing I was aiming for. So there's less of that kind of issue of worrying about perfection. So going to be kind of drawing some patterns today. So if you were at the Zentangle session the other day and you have some patterns that you want to draw instead of the ones that I'm going to show you, then feel free to do that. You don't have to follow along exactly with what I'm going to do. Okay, so in terms of colors, if you're working with colored materials, you know, I don't want to get too much into kind of color theory and things like that, but I would just pick colors that you feel connected to and drawn to today. Just have a look at your supplies and pick a color, or black if you're working black and white. Just don't overthink it. There's not really a kind of wrong and a right color to pick, so there's no worries there. So I'm going to work with Posca pens, so I might need to use my scrap paper a little bit just to kind of work with the ink. So actually that one's not going to show up so well on the purple, so maybe I'm going to use the blue with the pink lines on there. So I'm going to just start by drawing some lines across my circle. Now notice how I am just rotating the circle and just kind of crisscrossing them, but also I'm going outside of the line of the circle. I know this camera's a little bit dark, but can you see I'm just going outside of the circle? So the reason for that is when we come to cut out our circles, it's really good to go over the edge of where you kind of want the pattern to go, so that it kind of really fills the whole thing. So when we are drawing any of our patterns, go right over the edge of that pencil line. So what we are going to try now is filling each of these individual sections just with parallel lines. So I'm following one side of each of the shapes. So I'm going to fill that shape with lines going in that direction, and then the next shape that's next to it, I'm going to pick a different angle just to give the whole thing a bit more kind of interest. And then I'm gradually going to fill my shape. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning that I'm going to give you some mindful drawing tips as we go. So if you are doing this type of drawing where you're doing maybe what I'd call kind of easy repetitive actions, so a bit like coloring. Okay, so we've got our structure and we know what we're doing. So now we are just doing these kind of lines inside the shapes. At this point, it's kind of really easy for your mind to what I call check out and wander off somewhere else. So when you're doing something easy, it may be, oh, okay, my mind's just going to start thinking about what I need to make for dinner later, or what I need to do tomorrow, or that appointment I need to book. It's just kind of human nature that our brain will just revert to doing that given any opportunity. So I'm going to give you some tips and techniques to try and keep you present with the drawing. So with this exercise, one that we will try is just counting. So you can count the shapes. If you're drawing a different pattern, see if there's some element of it that you can count. So for this one, I can count each line that I'm drawing. So I won't do all of them, but I'll just show you how I would do that. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll carry on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, what this does is it gives your brain just like a really easy task to do that will hopefully just encourage it to stay with the present and not kind of wander off somewhere else. So you can give that a go if you are drawing a pattern that allows you to count. Now, don't worry if you lose count or you just kind of tune out and think, oh no, I've sort of gone somewhere else and I forgot I was counting. It's fine. Just start at 1 again and carry on from there. It's super effective, and it's exactly like, I'm sure you've probably heard the advice that if you can't sleep, you should try counting sheep. It's for exactly the same reason, in that it is giving your mind something really simple to focus on, and it will hopefully help you to stay present with what you're doing with the drawing. So I've almost finished this one. Okay, so I'm just going to show you that a bit closer. Can you see? Okay, so you can see how the pattern is going outside of that kind of pencil line. So we're going to cut the pencil line off later. So I'm going to move on to a different pattern. Don't worry if you're still drawing yours, you can just follow along when the timing is right. Okay, so next I'm going to try maybe something kind of simple. I'm going to try some wavy lines. Let's just see. I'm going to use a slightly thicker pen. This will look really nice on the purple, hopefully. Kind of like a really wavy, wiggly line. And I've drawn that right across the middle of the circle. So what I am going to do next is kind of use that line and trace the same shape above and below. Now it will change slightly just because of the width of the peaks and troughs as you go, but don't worry about it being perfect or anything like that. We're trying to sort of let go a bit of perfection with these. So I have another tip that you can try, another exercise, another mindful exercise that you can try with a pattern like this. And this one is to just try, if you can, to sync your breathing with what you're drawing. So because I'm doing this line and it's kind of a long-ish shape that I'm drawing, I can try doing one inhale as I draw one line. And then the next line, I'll try doing it on an exhale. So it does depend on what you're drawing. If you are drawing a shape that's a bit more what I call modular, so say if you're drawing a shape that's more like lots of individual shapes, like circles, for example, something you can try if you want to try syncing your breathing with this way of drawing is, for example, to breathe in for 3 shapes. Let's try that. Breathing in and out for 3. And again, this is just another thing to give us a really, really simple exercise to do. So hopefully encourage our very chatty, busy brain to just kind of calm down and be present rather than thinking of all of the things that are kind of going on in the background. Give your mind a bit of a rest from all that and to actually just be present with the drawing. Okay, so I'll just show you that a bit closer. Can you see? So that one was quite quick because it's kind of a bigger pen. So I'm going to try something on my small circle now. I'm going to try a different colour. I can't get enough of the colours today. Let's go with an orange. Go wide. So we may come back, if you're using colour as well, we may come back to some of these and add some extra colours in a little while. But at the moment, I'm just going to do some simple shapes. So I am going to just do some concentric circles with this one. Now, a concentric circle meaning just circles that echo the shape that I'm drawing inside. Now, if you're drawing any closed shape, so if it's a circle, a square, diamond, anything where the shape closes, so for example, square could be like that, and it closes. What I want you to try as a mindful exercise this time is try focusing your attention on the point where you begin and end the shape. So for me on the square, it was that point there. So I'm going to try that with my next circle. I'm really focusing my attention on that point where the circle starts and ends. And I'm going to do it again. And again, it's just a super simple task that you can give your brain to say, try and stay present, try and keep kind of with the drawing rather than wandering off. So at this point, I'll just show you that a bit closer. So you can see that I have gone kind of right up to the pencil line. You can go beyond the pencil line as well if you want to, but I'm just going to end up kind of cutting that off when we come to cutting them out. So now that I have 3 of my circles with patterns in, what I'm going to do next is roughly cut my circles out. So the reason for this is that we are going to draw on the other sides of the circles as well, because when you come to create your mobiles, they will really beautifully kind of turn and spin. So you will be able to see both sides. So it's really nice to draw on both sides. So this is why I recommended that you, if you have it, use quite thick paper or card. So this is 300 GSM, the card that I've been using. If you have used something a bit thinner, so you've just been using a thinner paper, what you can do, if you found that, for example, you've used a pen that's bled through the paper, what you can do is actually cut some extra circles and then kind of stick them together at the end. So don't worry if you don't have really thick paper or card, because there's always a way around it. There's always a way around everything. So the reason why I'm cutting them kind of close to the pencil line, but not right up to the pencil line. And the reason for that is that when we turn them over and draw on the other side, we don't really want to draw the pencil circles again, because it will be kind of impossible to get them in the right place. And we don't want to end up with pencil marks on our kind of final bits that we're going to string together. So by roughly cutting them out, we know that if we try and fill the shape as much as possible with pattern, it's pretty much going to work once we kind of get all the way to the edge. So I will start with my largest one. And at this point, we can revisit our kind of our exercises and try them again. So I'm going to use some different colors, I think. So I used turquoise on that side. So I'm going to go with a bit of orange first, I think. So I'm going to start with some simple stripes with this one. And I might actually add some extra bits and pieces inside the stripes. So I'm going to leave a bit of space. And because of what I'm drawing, I'm using stripes. There's different, you could do this with the counting technique. So I could be counting 1, 2, 3, or you could try the breathing as well. I could be inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So once you kind of have tried the mindful drawing exercises, it's good to try applying them to different kind of patterns, because you don't have to stick with the patterns that I'm doing. These will apply to all kinds of different ways of drawing. So I think I'm going to try, try doing some shapes inside. Don't know if that pink is going to, let's just test it. Is the pink going to show up on the purple? Not really, not really. Let's try something else. Okay. So I'm going to first try doing just some little dots, I think, in blue. 2, 3, 4. And again, I could use either of those techniques that we just tried, of either the counting of the dots as I'm drawing them, or I could try the breathing exercise where I breathe in for a certain number of circles and breathe out for a certain number of circles. I would definitely say just experiment a bit with the breathing exercise, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to kind of make yourself feel out of breath. You just want to kind of, when you're drawing something over a length of time, especially where it's kind of a repetitive action, like you're creating a shape over and over, it's really nice to, if you sync your breathing with what you're drawing, it kind of helps you feel really connected to what you're drawing. And it can, I think it can really help you feel kind of like in a flow state. That's what I've kind of found with this in any case. So, and you don't have to rush this, if you want to inhale for one and exhale for one shape, you can slow down the speed that you're drawing at. I think, I'm going relatively fast just because I want to show you everything before the end of our workshop, but you can totally take your time with this. So yeah, go at your own pace. So I'm going to move on to another one. I might come back and add some more to that if we have time. But I want to make sure that we have, got time to do all of our shapes. Okay, so I think I have pink on one side. I'm going to add some orange on the other side. Kind of love this orange. I'm going to do some dots here. I think solid dots. And it makes sense. I think you probably know by now what exercise I might be doing with these, or exercises I could pick. I think I'm going to count. And if you are using colour, it's really nice opportunity to kind of like really tune into the colours, really look at them and kind of almost like feel them. Like this orange, I don't know if it's coming through on the camera, but it's super vibrant. And I find it kind of energizing. It's a really nice bright colour, especially against the blue. Okay, so I'm just going to show you that a bit closer. So you can see I've just kind of gone as close to the edge as I can. I'm going to let that dry because I'm using Posca pens. They do stay wet for a bit of time. So I'm going to let that dry and then I might come back and add some other colours in there in a moment. But before that, I'm just going to work on this one. So there's a little bit of a pool of ink, which often happens with Posca pens. So I'm just going to see if I can grab the excess ink off there. It doesn't matter if the middle fills in, because otherwise it will take quite a long time to draw. Okay, so I am going to try on here. Let's see, maybe pale blue. I'm going to try doing some circles that are kind of connected, like bubbles almost, and see if I can focus my attention on the point where those circles begin and end. I really like this color combination, the yellow and blue. So what's really nice about these kind of drawings as well is you can use anything to create these. If it's on a nice kind of fairly firm paper, if you've got some, I don't know, paintings or prints that you want to cut up and use for something else like collage or something like that, you can draw on anything. So you can really make them suit your own style. So if you're someone who's, I'm not really very painterly, but they could totally work beautifully if you're a painterly kind of person, using kind of really nice brush strokes to create these sorts of different marks. So you can still apply the same processes of mindfulness just with different materials. I'm going to turn that. So just so you know, I can't see the chat from where I'm sitting. So if any questions are coming up, I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see it from this angle. So I will check it in a bit. But if there's anything that's coming up questions wise, Peggy, do feel free to chime in and let me know.
Absolutely. We have a lot of creative thoughts happening, a lot of idea generation right now.
Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is actually, so I might add some more colours, but actually I think I might save adding more colours until after we have kind of cut everything out more neatly so that we can add some different kind of designs to maybe different shapes. So if you've got to this point, you can follow along. If you haven't, please don't worry about keeping up, because that's why I made the workbook, right? So that if you don't quite get to finish your mobile during the session, there's really thorough instructions for you to be able to refer back to. So I'm now cutting out the circles more carefully. So I'm going to kind of hold it up here so you can see. So you can see the pencil line, hopefully, and I'm just trying to cut right inside the pencil line so that I'm cutting the pencil line off. Now, this in itself is a little bit like that mindful technique that we tried with the concentric circles and the little circles, where we were focusing on that kind of the point where the shape begins and ends. So being able to focus your attention on a spot that's quite specific, it hopefully is going to encourage our mind to stay present with the drawing. Okay, so we have more of a kind of neat circle. And I will do the same thing with this one. Okay, and my tiny one, hopefully it's still a little bit wet, this one. Hopefully I can avoid the kind of really wet parts. Okay, so we have 3 circles now. So what I'm going to ask you to do next is actually to cut your biggest circle in half to make 2 semicircles. So have a look at how your pattern is arranged on there, and think about how you might like to cut it. So if I cut it this way, for example, those stripes are going to be kind of going up and down a semicircle, which is really nice. Or you might prefer for them to be diagonal, in which case I could cut them through this way. The pattern on that side is going to kind of work in most directions. So I am going to cut mine across the middle. I think just so I quite like the vertical stripes on my semicircle, like this. Now you can, if you want to, you could also cut the medium one if you want to. This is going to depend on how you want to compose your shapes in a moment, which we'll come on to. I think I am going to cut mine into 2. So you can, if you want to, or you could wait until we get to the composition stage if you want to. So because these pieces are going to be part of the same mobile, I'd like to maybe make this piece look different to this piece. So they have the same pattern on them, but if I just revisit, say, one of my colors, I could just put a little extra something on this side that makes it just look a little bit different to the other one. Maybe I'll do just some little circles around. It's kind of just really fun to play with kind of what I would definitely call doodling, kind of working with the colors that you have or the patterns. If you're working in black and white, it can also just be really fun to try using different thicknesses of pen or kind of coloring in sections so that you get a kind of variety of line thicknesses. Okay, so I think we should go on to probably assembling in one sec. I just want to do something real quick just to make that one look a bit different. So just going to add some extra lines on this side, just so it looks a tiny bit different to the other one. Okay, so now we have our pieces ready to assemble. We can have a think about how we want to kind of lay them out. You don't have to use all of them for sure. So if you feel like, actually, I'd quite like it to be just something really simple, and only use 2 or 3 of the shapes, then that is totally fine. It's really nice actually to save some shapes to kind of start from or inspire another mobile, maybe another time. So you definitely don't have to use them all. Let's see. I think I really love using the semicircles kind of pointing up. I feel as though I might just not use that half and just leave mine as kind of 4 shapes. But you can kind of play around with how you want to assemble your compositions. If you have the workbook, I have done in there some kind of composition templates here for different variations, depending on whether you have 3 circles or 4 circles. So that might be helpful if you would find it helpful. So I am going to leave mine like this as 4 shapes. So next we need to make some holes in our shapes to be able to string them together. So the bottom shape in your composition only needs a hole at the top. So I'm going to use my hole punch. Now I know this might be the bit where people worry about, I don't want to ruin it and punch it in the wrong place. So if you have a hole punch, hopefully, can you see? Try and get it at the right angle. You can see where the metal is kind of coming through. So you can make sure that it's definitely in your shape and it's not going to be kind of just cutting part of the edge off. And you don't really need to worry too much about whether they're all completely aligned in the center. I've tried this process many times and have made some very, very wonky holes, and it still tends to work. It might be more of an issue if you were making like a super long mobile with sort of, more than say 6 pieces, but if you're doing just a small mobile like this one, it's really not going to be that much of an issue if you have them slightly off center. So I kind of like the idea of wearing these as earrings. It would be cool if they were kind of smaller, or maybe actually they could be really giant earrings. That'd be quite nice. So the top piece, you do need to have a hole in both the top and the bottom, because we are going to hang it from, we're going to suspend it from the top. Okay, so now we need to join them together. So I have some thread here. If you don't have any thread, this will just totally work with dental floss. Or, if you have something else that's kind of thread-like, it will totally work. So it doesn't really matter the length that you cut because we're going to trim it off. My advice would be to just cut a length of thread that you feel is not too fiddly to work with, so you can still, tie it in a knot and work with it without it being too short. But if it's too long, you might find that you get in a bit of a mess and a bit of a knot. So the way that I would recommend that you do this, because I know it can be a bit fiddly, is you position the 2 pieces that you're joining together so they are pretty much almost touching, almost but not quite touching, and then tie a knot in your thread. But don't pull it too tight. So you can see that I've pulled it just enough so that they've started to touch, but there's still a little bit of slack in the thread there. So actually when they hang, there's going to be a tiny gap between them. So I'm going to do a second knot. And actually my tip about this part is do 3 knots. This is just because I've found that when I do 2 knots, very often one of them, they come undone. So I think 3 knots is kind of the sweet spot between not doing too many, but also being secure. And then you can cut off the excess. So we have two pieces joined together. And then I'll do the same thing for these two pieces. If you are finding that you didn't really have enough time to kind of make your individual shapes feel different from each other, you can still totally draw on them once they are assembled as well. Like there's nothing to stop you kind of assembling it together and then adding a little bit more afterwards. But equally, if you are not quite ready to join your pieces together yet, then there is no pressure to have finished. So again, I am going to put them so they're almost touching. So that's one, not, oops, two, there we go. So one more shape to go. So if you have got any spare pieces that you haven't used, like I haven't used this one here, I would really recommend that you just hang on to them, because they are great for maybe forming the start of a new one, a new mobile, or using them in collage, which I love doing collage. I don't know if any of you were at my workshop last year. We did botanical collages, and I love to keep all the little pieces that I don't actually use in the finished thing. I think it's a really good way of, like, if you have a period where you feel kind of creatively blocked, I think we all get that sometimes. If you just have a little bag of like bits, collage bits, it's so handy, because you can create a whole new piece that just starts from like one simple shape. Okay, so that one is done. So again, I'm just going to trim the excess off. Okay, so for our bit at the top, we just need a bit more thread. So how much you need is kind of going to depend on, you know, where you're going to hang it. But I'm just going to cut a reasonably long piece. I'm going to just do this one in a slightly different way, in that I've got the ends here, and I'm just going to tie the two pieces together, basically just to make a big long loop. You don't have to do it this way. I just find it kind of easier to create a loop this way. Okay, and then I'm going to feed it through feeding the loop through the top hole, and then, oops, just put the ends through the hole. Can you see this? There we go. So if you have time, we're almost out of time, I think, but if you fit, for example, these two shapes are still looking really similar. So you could go back in and actually add some more pattern, colours, shapes, whatever you want to do onto some of your pieces, just to make them feel just a little bit more different from each other. And it's just really kind of fun to do that. Just going to add. Okay. So there we go. I'm just going to go back over to my other camera. Okay, and there we go. That's the finished thing. I'm just going to see, are there any questions in the chat that I can answer? Oh gosh, there's a lot to catch up with. Stripes of different thicknesses. Yeah, some of the colors you can really play with your colors with this as well. It's a really nice exercise, not only in kind of doodling and mindfulness, but just playing and finding out what colors you like, what colors go well together. That looks nice. That sounds amazing. I'll try this out with air dry clay. That sounds awesome. No, I saw someone ask about my earrings. No, I didn't make these myself. I wish I did. Um, they were from Etsy. Somebody from Etsy made them. Any questions? Yes, do it with your students. The workbook will be really helpful. So if you haven't already grabbed that, that's on my website. So you can go and grab your copy. Oh, thank you so much.
This is so awesome, Mel. This is such a fun project. I agree. Amy said this is so nice. I'll definitely be using this for mindfulness. Oh,
Yeah.
would you mind real quick? Geraldine's asking if you could repeat how you could do how you did the top thread.
Oh yeah, the top thread. So I'm going to just show you on this camera. So let's see if I can get it to focus on me. Actually, you know what? Maybe it would be, I'll just grab a color. I'll grab a colored thread. Maybe that would help, because I know it's quite difficult to see the white. White's great because it's kind of disappeared. So, okay, so I have a loop of thread, and I'm going to get both of the loose ends, so the cut ends. Is it focusing? So I've got both the cut ends in between my finger and thumb, and there's a loop. You see that's where the loop of thread is. And then I'm just going to tie a knot. You don't have to do it this way, by the way. It's just a kind of method that I've been using, which I quite like. I'm going to tie it. You only really need 2 knots when you do it this way, when you're tying both pieces at once. So I have, can you see, tied 2 knots there, and there's a loop at the end. And then to put it through, kind of squeeze the end that is the loop to make it small. Put it through the hole. And then you can put like the loose, the tied bit through. It just gives you a slightly different way of tying it. That's, I think, a little bit easier than sort of just trying a knot. But you can totally just tie a knot in the same way that we join the pieces together if that's easier.
Thank you very much. She's got it. I know it's probably helpful for a few people too. I was just reading what you guys are saying. You have all Compliment City coming in, and someone said they love your chair. I didn't see your chair. What is your chair?
Chair.
It is fun.
It's green. It's green.
I just think that everybody wants, like, including myself, wants to come and hang out in that room with you.
Yeah, that would be so awesome. I was hoping that Dougal, my cat, would be here today. You can see he has a little.
I saw your cat tree too, and I was like,
yeah, he's usually up there watching over me, but today he's chosen a different spot to sleep in. So yeah,
I tried bringing a cat tree into this room, and they just weren't having it. They only care about being on my keyboard, on my hand when I'm trying to use the mouse, under the camera if I'm using it. They do not. I wish. That would be so sweet, but I just have to be like, you gotta go.
Yeah, he's very good. He stays up there, but I love when I can see him dreaming, you know, when cats twitch.
Yes, it's so sweet. I fully agree. Thank you so much, Mel. You have the funnest sessions. They are always so creative and so accessible. Somebody had mentioned that in your handout, your workbook, there's even more than just this guide. And so I just wanted to remind everyone to make sure that you grab that from her website. I'm going to make you larger so you guys can see that website right there. Because you're going to get botanical goodies and guides too, if you want to head over there and check them out. You've got a lot of great resources. So definitely check those. And we have Mel's website also under her workshop space. So you'll be able to grab that too. Thank you, Mel, so much. Everybody, you have about 9 minutes before our next session. So take a little breather and we'll see you in a few. I'm going to just also tell you that there might be a giveaway coming up. So you better be there on time. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much, guys.